Welcome to Self-Perfected.
We're live.
We're live too?
I'm live.
Are live.
I'm Lurk.
All right.
Welcome
I missed
to
you
the
guys.
Self-Perfected podcast, where we have
There we
one
go.
strike now.
Really?
Yes. That's right.
Oh, yeah,
That's
you missed
right.
the big news. We got a strike on Catch 22 episode.
We got a warning. We got a warning.
For
Oh,
what?
yeah, I don't know if it's a strike.
Talking about the H word?
No, surprisingly.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Talking about the C word,
Yeah.
the V word.
Which C word?
CV 19.
Oh.
Every letter is a word now.
Really? Out of all of them, that one?
Yeah, we don't even remember what we talked about.
I know.
It was some COVID misinformation bullshit. So,
So-
anyways, we got a warning.
All right. Ministry of Truth is after us. Don't
It
worry.
said because something about
That's
we
right.
contradicted the WHO, but the thing is they contradict themselves. So
Yeah, but Cameron,
Yeah.
that was one too many.
Strike two, right there.
it's straight up Ministry of Truth. It's straight up like
I know.
yes, they said this in the past, but also they never said that in the past. And they
Right.
say this and they've always said this. And it's like you have to just do the double think about it.
Right.
It's crazy how much that has become so much a reality now. The actual
Right, so it's
reality
like-
of 1984. Yeah.
It's like you're not even allowed to now talk about reality, basically. You have to talk about it's like a alternated version, because like who's not getting strikes? Let's think about that for a minute. Logan Paul, all
Tim
these
Pool.
fucking
Tim
business
Pool.
gurus.
Yeah. Tim Pool's not
How is
really
Tim
getting
Pool not
straight.
getting strikes?
Because he
He's just reading news articles.
He reads the news articles for one, and then like he doesn't give his opinion. Like he'll allude to what he thinks, but he never goes all the way until it's like that's the mainstream, So it's
Yeah.
like, I think he'll say something like there's a civil war coming, but then he'll be like, because so and so said it, there's a civil war, and so else said it's a civil war, and this
So
person,
he's just a
it's not
puppet
just
again.
me. Yeah,
Wow.
he's a puppet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you want to be on the podcast where no one's a puppet, that's the spot to be.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone else is a puppet. So anyway, I was thinking about
strings here.
No
Lamb.
strings attached, baby.
That's good. Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. What are the strings? In that analogy, what are the strings? Is that kind of
Who's the
interesting?
puppet
to think about?
master? And does the puppet master have strings?
Mm.
Ooh, because is the puppet
God.
master having strings too? Wow.
Even
Wow.
God has strings.
Mm.
And I've pulled them.
God has strings. Wow. We could pull the strings. Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna pull
We'll
some
get more into
strings.
that.
Somebody
later.
that's like a statement. That's a phrase,
Yeah.
right? We're gonna
Yeah.
pull some strings.
I can pull some strings.
No strings attached.
Yeah.
I can pull
Yeah.
some strings. What does that mean?
It's like you're getting
Finding
like,
the leverage.
you're getting some leverage. You're saying you're the puppet master if you can pull some strings, right? Or you can pull on some strings of some favors that are owed to you. That creates the strings.
Ooh.
Holy shit. Then you become the
Ooh.
puppet of somebody who needs a favor. That's why somebody says never borrow something from somebody that you don't want to owe a favor to.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Right. There's a phrase that's kind of like that. It's like never take something from somebody you don't want to owe a favor to.
But isn't this just
That's funny.
Jesus's like give as you want to receive? Like
Well, I was just thinking about like question we asked Drake yesterday of what does it mean to make a deal with the devil?
Mm.
You know?
That's what you and Drake
Right.
talk about. That's good.
That's what we talk about at our clubhouse.
Drake is really taking this pastor thing to the next level.
Yes.
It consumes me.
The devil consumes Drake.
Find out next episode on So Perfected Podcast.
Okay. So what's funny is people will say things like I'm okay. Yeah, I'm the one pulling my strings in my reality. I'm like totally pulling the strings. What's funny is if they haven't actually done the work, they're literally still have strings getting pulled. Like it's this funny delusion that people will get into when they aren't walking the self-perfection process, is that there's this point of self-honesty where you realize you have a 7-year journey to walk minimum Because if you don't have that, there have been strings that have basically been hooked into you because of your whole programming. So your first 7 years of your life, right? You like literally every word you've ever learned, everything you've ever learned was coming from a tainted system. Now it's different because now we're on the second wave for our kids. But unless you're Max, Seneca, Caius, any of the TT kids listening to this, you got some fucking strings. And even those kids, you know, they're gonna have a little bit here and there. But this I just find it fascinating is like when people are not able to see that blind spot. And that's really what this podcast is. We're like a fucking spotlight on that blind spot of people where they're missing the fact that there are strings holding them back and they're getting manipulated by these strings that they didn't even put there. Some of it was put randomly, you know, it's the whole pre-programming thing. So anyway, we can open up that more in a moment, but I have this other cool point I want to bring up because I'm
gonna let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish. I just had a funny imagery of just like putting a spotlight on the blind spot, the spot that people are not wanting to look at. We're like illuminating that, and people are just no, excuse me.
It's like everyone wants enlightenment, but then when they get real enlightenment, then they're
How can you be enlightened if you have blind spots?
Right. Okay. All right. Now, what did you want to open up?
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. So I was looking at this the other day. I was actually driving in my car and I was thinking about this and I was like, wow, like we'll drive on these roads because I live in the country. So sometimes you're going 60 miles an hour. Someone else is going 60 miles an hour, like the other way. Right. And there's just this little yellow line right in the middle. It's kind of gnarly when you really think about it. Right. I was like, wow, like you're just driving. Right. and then that opened up this idea within me where I could like see how, okay, like imagine in your life, you're in this vehicle and you have this momentum and you're going forward. And especially as you're like going towards your goals, your desires and things like that. And you either are going to be like focused on the road or you're going to be focused like on the wall around you, right? Like, let's say you're driving on the freeway and there's like a wall, you know, next to you. And many times, like if I look at my own past, especially before I found Self-Perfected and TT, it was like, I would have the desire to like, I want to go forward in my life. Fuck yeah. I'm going to like go like in like really go for it. But then what I didn't realize was like, I was actually then, it was a common thing for me to like move forward and then fucking go into the wall, right? And the wall would be symbolic of like what I don't want to have happen. Okay. So I was looking at this and I'm like, wow, okay. So I'm starting to get more and more aware, especially as I use TechnoTutor, of like what that wall is in my life, which is basically like the things that I don't want to have happen. I'm able to process and start to see like, as I look throughout the day and as I focus and as I move forward and take action, that there will be times where I'll be focused on the road ahead. I'm like going fucking fast and it's cool. But then there's times where then I'll veer and I'll like almost crash into the wall, or I will crash into the wall. And then it's like, okay, pick myself back up, learn the lesson and keep going. With that being said, right, I want to open up this question of like, how do you guys, how do you see that analogy? Like the phrase that we use, what you focus on grows, which is a true statement. Yet now when, for example, on the podcast, we'll talk about things that get us strikes, you know, or like the CV19, the H word, the V word, all these different things, right? And so
the N word.
yeah, the N word, the M word, the L word, just words in general. So how do you guys see this? Where is it an equilibrium of looking at both, like focusing on the desire, which is where we're headed, world that's best for all, effective education for everyone, change the system, while also then looking at these other things, such as how there's like a social credit score trying to be implemented, CBDCs, World Economic Forum, because one who's a newbie could think, oh, well, you guys are still focused on the World Economic Forum and all the stuff, which I wouldn't say we really are, but we're aware of it. But it's like how some newbie could come in and be like, wow, you guys focus a lot on the negative. why don't you focus more on the positive and where you want to go? Right. So I wanted to at least open up that question, because I am sure there are people who listen to this podcast who might think that, even if it's subconsciously. So
Okay, so question: how do you solve a problem if you're not even willing to look at the problem? Like if your
There are no
idea,
problems.
there are no problems, only solutions.
Jake, you answered my question with a question. Wow.
but the point being, like, okay, so I'm reading this book, right? That Katie recommended, and it's a great book, right? And it's called The Conquest of Happiness. I think it was written in the 1930s. And it's like, I love reading this. Actually, it was funny. I was reading it to someone yesterday, and I'm really this is gonna sound so fucking nerdy, but like, when you read something that's well written, like the words that are used, it's almost like poetry. Like, that's how I'm reading this. It's like, wow, the way that he said it. It's not just what he said that it was so like well said. It's the way that he said it is like, there's beauty in the way that it's written. Anyway, that said, so it's got like kind of older language to it, right? Somebody that I was reading it to yesterday, they were like, I can't read that medieval shit. I was like, okay. But there's
Like,
something.
this is just English.
Oldie English.
Yeah.
But it's by Bertrand Russell, who is like a very prolific philosopher, right?
Such a good writer. There's one thing that he's talking about. Basically, he's talking about happiness, how you can be happy. And one thing that relates to everything that we talk about here, he says, concerning the abolition of war, of economic exploitation, of education, and cruelty and fear, it is not my intention to speak in this volume. To discover a system for the avoidance of war is a vital need of our civilization, but no such system has a chance while men are so unhappy that mutual extermination seems to them less dreadful than continued endurance in the light of day, right? Basically,
Wow.
right? Basically, what he's saying here, and then he goes on to say specifically that we obviously need to change the system, and that happens through individuals. And he says the reason why people are so unhappy is because of the system, and partly because of their own psychology. But you have to acknowledge that their psychology is influenced by the system itself. So again, it's the system that needs to change, right? And us as individuals taking responsibility. It's really cool, just that point that he makes. But essentially, when I'm reading this, one thing that really sticks out to me about that is he also talks about how in rich society, kind of like the society we have now, he's talking about how people will go out to like, basically they'll go out drinking or petting, I guess is what they did back in that time. Petting.
Like
Hold
making out
on, buddy.
at the point.
Yeah.
What's being pet? Who's being pet?
You know what's being pet, and you know who's petting. But it's funny because he says, like, people will go out drinking, like they have this determination to go drinking and to be happy. They have a determination to be happy, and like as if they're determined to go to the dentist and not make a fuss, right? And then they'll basically they're going out clubbing, right? So that they can get drunk already and forget the person that they're trying to pursue, like that they don't actually like them, right? And he says the whole reason is like people are trying to be quote unquote happy because they're avoiding within themselves facing the point that they are unhappy. So they're seeking all these different things outside of themselves, like entertainments and things like that, in order just to distract themselves from their happiness, from their unhappiness, right? And so the point, going back to what you were asking, is like, people don't realize they've become so distracted, so involved with this illusion of all these, like, oh, I'm going to the club and that's what fun is. Like, it's all about my experience. It's all about how I feel, that they've completely missed the mark on what is reality, that they're not even happy. They've completely diagnosed themselves, essentially, where they're not aware of what's going on around them. And so what we're doing, we're not focusing on what's wrong. We're becoming aware of it and making others aware of it, because with awareness is like, okay, what's that phrase, Cam? It's like, there's no my truth, right? There's not like, there's only truth and denial of and what is here, right? Is that it?
There is
Did I
no
get-
truth, only
there's no truth.
denial of what is here. Yeah.
Okay, there it is. There is no truth, only denial of what is here. Right. So essentially, meaning it's not about like, well, you know, I feel this way about it, and so it must be true. Like, oh, Cam, you sent this Ibram X. Kendi talking about systemic racism and all this stuff on NPR, right? And it's interesting listening to that, because I remember literally, what was it, 2 years ago now, from George Floyd, right? When everybody was like, oh, we all have to be anti-racist now. I'm like,
It's
fuck
almost 3
that.
years ago.
3 years ago? Oh shit. Okay.
About
2.5.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone's like, we all have
Rest
to
in
be.
peace, George.
You're gonna get us another strike.
Cameron, you have to say rest in power, otherwise we're getting a strike.
Yeah.
Asshole.
But people were all talking about being anti-racist and all this, and it's like, that is another one of these, like, in order to go that far, like people are very well-meaning, if you can say that, right? They realize what's in front of them doesn't make sense. They want something different. They want to choose something different. That's why so many people will go down the path of like law of attraction, like I did myself, where it's like, no, I'm only going to focus on the positive things, because I could see in my own life, there's a whole bunch of shit I don't like. So, okay, I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on what I do want, right? But the reality is of what you're actually doing is you're not actually focused on what you do want. You're focused on distracting yourself from what you don't want. That's all you're fucking doing. What we're focused on is creating a system, creating a world that is actually best. That's the actual focus. That's why it's like, okay, yeah, sometimes it's not going to be fucking fun. Well, it's not going to feel all bubbly inside and all that anyway, right? Sometimes it's fucking challenging, but it's worth it, right? It's like, okay, why are you here? Are you here for just an experience? Because we know where that goes. We know where that goes. If you're here just for an experience, imagine, you just want to feel blissfully happy. If you take that to the logical conclusion of I just feel blissful all the time, why don't you just drug yourself up and have a steady drip of MDMA, you know, or have a steady drip of heroin, or you get what I'm saying? It's like, we're about to get to the point where you can plug into the metaverse and you can literally block out anything that's deemed hate speech, block out anything you don't want, anything you don't like. You can curate what you see to always be positive. That's what these law of attraction and like positive thinkers are always focused on, right? It's like, nope, I don't even allow negative things into my line of view.
Imagine, the secret book and movie. Imagine they come out with a video game in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Dude, that's essentially what people want. That's essentially what people want.
But
They
it's so
think they
funny.
want it.
It's so funny though, because speaking of this blind spot thing, I've heard people who are this like fake awareness people, or fake woke people, right? It's like they'll justify the blind spot being, oh, the universe just knew that I wasn't prepared for that yet, or God knows that I'm not prepared for that, for whatever was to come yet, right? And then, but really, what is that actually? It's lack of vocabulary, right? Which then the like actual awareness of something is confused then with mysticism, because they're like, oh, now I'm ready for this thing that's like being presented to me, so to speak, right? So like Drake is alluding to, it's like, no, we're just increasing our vocabulary basically so that we're aware of all these things actually without the emotional bias, though, of all of the things that are going on. Because that's really what the problem is, too. It's like people are reacting negatively to all the things that are going on, like the World Economic Forum, and just going into doom and gloom with absolutely no solution. Right?
Hey, Mitch, have you ever read The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how
Which is like, yes, I was traumatized by that first chapter.
I remember
That book was crazy. That was so cool.
I remember
should
I
read
got
that
that
again.
I got that book and I was like,
Such a good book.
I'm reading Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, right? And I told Cam and Katie, and then like I was already into like the second chapter, and but Cam didn't know. He was like, oh, just I think Katie was saying like, you know, once you get past the first chapter, then it's good. You know, like you'll be good from there. You just got to get past that first chapter. And I was like, oh, I'm already on like the second chapter. There, the response I got was like the Jack Nicholson, yes.
The thing is, I
Yeah.
never got past the first chapter because I just kept rereading it over and over. Because I was like, this is where it's at. This is all right. I want to give my perspective on the point that you were bringing
Yes.
up, Mitch. Okay. So
Yeah.
one thing I was looking at was like, maybe it's kind of snarky, but aren't you supposed to like consider there is no positive and negative, actually? Like there is no good and bad, it's all perception.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're saying, well, you shouldn't talk about the negative, but at the same time, isn't it there is no good and bad, it's just what you make it. You know, like the story with the Chinese guy who sends his son to the Uyghur extermination
Imagine
camps.
a modified version. Imagine a modified version. He lives in Wuhan.
Yeah, he gets coronavirus. He's patient 0. He works at the lab.
They're like, oh, so bad. He's like,
This is not bad. And then they're
maybe.
like, yes, but look, at crippled the US economy. And he's like, oh, this is good.
And then, but the US won't be able to buy things from the Chinese anymore.
Like,
Oh, how
no. He's
bad.
like, it might not be bad. And they're like, oh, but we can spread our Orwellian technology across the world and create a new empire. They're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
But there's that side of it, right? But then there's the more here's where law of attraction is really just another religion, and it's just based on faith, and you don't question anything. You don't really look into it too far, because the moment you do, somebody would be like, oh no, you just have to whatever, you have to just believe it, or I don't know what they would say in this context, but it's like
you're looking a gift horse in the mouth.
Okay, hold on. It's like
Can you repeat that, Trick?
You're looking a gift horse in the mouth.
oh, they said
What does that
licking.
mean?
I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do.
I thought you were laughing because you just got your horse's teeth done.
But he wasn't a gift.
I know.
He is gifted. He's gifted and talented horse.
He's in the G&T.
He's the GT. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, here's what I was thinking. Like, let's say, okay, you're a person who's studying law of attraction, self-improvement, that kind of stuff, right? And they're saying, don't focus on the negative. That's what you hear, that's what you think, right? That's what you believe you're supposed to do. But what brought you, if you're honest with yourself, what brought you to studying the law of attraction in the first place?
Having negative experiences in your life, wanting to figure out how to feel less shitty.
Isn't it? Like, I mean, that's everybody across the board. They get into it because they like, there's this desire within them to want more. So the starting point of the search of law of attraction is self-defeating, because it's starting on a point of lack, right? And I think I said this on the podcast like a while back. I was like, you know, if you don't want to, I don't remember how I phrased it, but it was something like, if you don't want to be, I think it was something like, if you don't want to be unhappy, like stop pursuing happiness. Like you can't have a lack or of happiness if you're not pursuing it. And so what are people looking for when they're applying the law of attraction?
Happiness.
but their starting point is a lack of it.
Yeah.
So why not totally let go of the need to be happy and just be happy?
Wait a minute.
If
wait. How am I supposed to be happy if I let go of being happy, Cameron?
right, see, and that's the point, and that shows the reality of the person's fear is the fear and the fear of not being happy. Because they're like, well, but how can I be happy? If I'm saying, well, you'll be happy if you stop worrying about being happy. I'm not saying you'll be happy. I'm just saying just be happy.
Listen, Cameron, you're creating an anomaly. This is
We got our second strike coming up. You're
Yeah.
contradicting the world law of attraction experts. You're contradicting Bob Proctologist.
Look, my logic gates can't compute. Let
That's-
go of
okay.
happiness.
But hold on. If you were happy intrinsically in yourself, okay, what would you do?
You would not be pursuing happiness. That would be the case, because if you were actually happy, you would just be living life.
But what would you do? What does it mean to live life?
Well, I mean,
If you were genuinely happy in like genuine happy, yeah, then you'd just be like giving, like you'd just be here and like supporting other people.
Like anytime I haven't wanted to read my kids a book was because I was tired or I felt bad. Like maybe I ate something and that didn't agree with me. Like I didn't feel good. But whenever I'm just like feeling fine, I'm like, yeah, I'll read you a book. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll play with you or whatever. Like it, so I know as a parent, honestly, the times where we are the least patient with our kids is because we're feeling stressed, tired, feeling bad, whatever the point is. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Right. So if you were just happy, you would be able to give a lot more. And if you were truly just, okay, I'm not focused on being happy. I'm just focused on giving. What would you do in this world? Wouldn't you go around and look at what are the problems and solve them? You say, well, but if I focus on the problems, then I'll start feeling bad. I'm like, no, not if your happiness wasn't dependent upon that. If your happiness was, what if your happiness was in solving the problems? So we're focusing on the negative. What if my happiness is focusing on the negative and solving it? Well, you can't have happiness if you're focusing on negative. Why not? You can only have it if you're focusing on positive. But the course of history has proven that to be false. Because everybody tries to focus on being happy or on positive things to be happy, and no one is happy. So that proves it wrong. Because then because just look at the practical mechanics of it. If you only focus on the positive, what do you not direct?
The negative.
So what grows?
The negative.
And you think, well, I thought what you focus on grows. Right. But what are you focused on?
Avoiding the negative.
Right. That's what you're focusing on. So that is
avoiding the negative. Yeah.
Yes. You're not focused on happiness. You're focused on avoiding the negative. Because if you were focused on happiness, you'd be like, let me solve all the negatives so I can be happy. Because happiness comes from not having any fucking negatives.
Yeah.
But they're thinking, well, I'll just suppress all the negatives. No, solve it.
Right.
Well, happiness doesn't come from ignoring your hunger. It comes from eating. I mean, not happiness, you know what I mean? Feeling satisfied in your body. It comes from having eaten, not from just being like, well, I'll just ignore that. And meditating, that's like the biggest lie of Buddhism. It's like, oh, just ignore the suffering. And it's like, okay. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
That part's funny because it's like, what would a satiated person do? They would just ignore their value. They don't feel hunger. So you just don't feel hunger. That's what you got to do. You got to not feel hunger.
That's the funny thing. It's like the law of attraction whole thing. It's like, man, people are like, I don't need the physical thing because I can feel happy without it. And it's like, well, then why do you have a picture of the Ferrari on your dream board? Isn't it that you want it in physical reality? So isn't that what you want? Not the feeling of how do you have the feel? And you listen to Your Command and all that. And it's like, you know, the moment you feel 100% that you have the thing and you have no doubt, that's when you get it. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the moment you're walking off the lot with the Ferrari and you already bought it. That's the moment where you feel 100% like you have it and you have no doubt because it's in you have the fucking title. I mean, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
It's like not a mental trick you do. It's the actual reality of buying it.
The funny part about it is how people get conned into, like, it's like having, you know what it's like? Okay. It's like baking cookies, right? And you walk into the home and you can smell the cookies and you're like, I've just eaten some cookies.
That's all
Like,
I needed.
no. Yeah, that's all I needed. I just need that smell. It's like, no, that's the whole point of baking the cookies, so you can eat the fucking cookie, right? But like people have like it's this mental gymnastics where you have the essence of, you know what it's like? It's like drinking a LaCroix, you know? It's like you got the
I
essence.
totally know what you feel about that.
Dude, I fucking love LaCroix.
Fuck those things. And talk about focusing on the negative. Everyone's drinking LaCroix.
Exactly.
Is it
Everybody
LaCroix
drinks
or is it
LaCroix.
LaCroix?
In Canada, apparently it's La Croix.
LaCroix.
Oh, no.
La Croix. Croix. Okay, anyway.
LaCroix.
Yeah. just-
Americans say LaCroix.
I mean,
You live in
not?
Florida.
you're
give
an
me your Canadian
American
bullshit.
now.
Drake is holding back the alligators. So the moment you show you're Canadian, they're gonna attack.
I mean, we went for a walk that
We'll
one
see.
time,
We'll-
and
we'll
we
see about
have an
that.
alligator in like our literally our backyard. But yeah,
But do you see what I mean? Like the person who's like, well, we shouldn't focus on the negative. You're only interested in self-interest.
that's it. That's
and
it.
Then you're not going to ever be happy because
Yes.
happiness doesn't involve only you.
Yes.
You
yes.
can't be happy only by yourself. That's not real. Like that is, imagine you wanted to engineer society to be consumer society where you have perpetual people who are unhappy and who will always be looking to buy something. Then you program everybody to think that happiness is only an individual thing so that you can be manipulated. That's all it is. It's not real. And like for men, the biggest point, I'm not saying if you do this, suddenly you become mature, but it's impossible to be fully mature if you do not have children.
So
As a man, because well, as a woman too, but I'm just saying, like, because you don't care about anything but yourself. Otherwise, I'm not saying the moment you do it, suddenly everything will change. I'm just saying it's a prerequisite.
it's the definition of maturity, right? It's like you actually matured.
But
Like-
I mean, also,
like-
it's like you realize, happiness isn't just me and how I feel. It's also about other people. Like maybe I feel really tired, but if my kid wants me to read him a book, I'm gonna be animated and read the book to him, and I don't feel good, but I'm supporting them. So and in that, I was gonna feel bad either way. Now I actually feel better in that sense. Not that I did it to feel better, but it's like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
What's
And-
best?
in this book as well, it talks about like that happiness or your self-interest being a cause for unhappiness. Because if you're self-interested only, because he's taking into account like, hey, look, the system is influencing everybody to be unhappy. And obviously in this system, if we're going to war, which sparked within me the recognition of something we always talk about, but it's said in a different way of, okay, the system currently that we have right now requires for you to be poor and discontent, right? It requires that because the only way, like, if you actually consider it, why would you want to kill someone on the other side of the planet you don't even know? Why would you want to kill? Right? For no reason. Unless your current situation is actually fucking worse. Your current situation at home, like you're going through your daily life, is so fucking dreadful where you're thinking, oh, what does everybody always say that they join the military for?
To serve, protect freedom.
To serve, protect freedom. But mostly, like, if you actually get down to it, it's like, well, the benefits. Like,
Oh.
I can pay for my college. I can get paid while I work, and I can save all of that money. Like that's how people are
Well, pay for
thinking
me to go
about
to
it.
college. You're like,
Yeah,
okay.
pay for my kids, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. Like the reality of
job.
it, it's a job.
It's a
It's a
government job.
job. It's a government job where it's
People
like,
turn it into like it's some fucking hero thing. I'm like, you've been watching too much Star Wars, man.
right. Or they're like, they get really into like the Call of Duty, which we've already seen is literally a psyop. It's literally the people who work on those games are literally the people from the government who worked in those, like in the State Department, you know, and all that to influence you to do it. And give me just one,
okay,
just 1 second, just 1 second, Cap. But the same people are pushing this game on you, which otherwise, if you weren't playing that game, you would be bored, meaning
Right.
discontent, right? Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I was just thinking like people who are like, oh, you know, you should respect the military and all the veterans and all that because they protect your freedom and all that. And it's like, what about the people in the military on the other side? Like the other country, like aren't the people thinking the same thing on that side?
Should we respect them too? Because they're doing the same thing.
It's kind of like the same thing of praying for God to like for your sports team to win. And it's like, aren't people on the other side doing the same thing?
Also, we
Like-
shat all over freedom with the last 2 years with COVID. You know what I mean? If we're still protecting our freedoms, it's like you wore a mask, you got vaccinated. So what freedom? And you were obviously coerced into all that stuff.
It all led to, it's such an obvious brainwashing to think that you're fucking something special because you were in the military and you served. You didn't serve, you fucking had a job. Was it dangerous? Absolutely. But think about it. What if I was like, look, what if we had a world where there was no military, there was no war? People would be like, oh, that's crazy.
right.
But going to war isn't crazy.
Right.
Going to war to fight over resources. No, it's about preserving freedom.
No, it's not.
Okay, then what do all the other countries have militaries for?
Preserving their freedom.
Is it? You see what I mean? Like, why does China have a military? Why do you think China has a military? Oh, well, that's to support their communist regime. I'm saying the same fucking thing about every military. It's just to support that fucking regime. That's all it is. It's not about freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't cool points about freedom within our constitution, our sort of our psyche, our DNA in America. And those are cool points, but it has nothing to do with the military.
Yeah.
Per se. And when has our fucking country ever actually been under attack?
Well, 9/11, we were under attack of sorts. Who knows if it was foreign or not? But...
all enemies, foreign or domestic. Pearl Harbor. Oh,
actually, I was reading through the community guidelines, whatever, right, for YouTube. That's one of the examples that they say you're not supposed to say.
What?
The 9/11. Yeah, they use that as an example.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, what? I've been saying that a lot.
that is in itself insane. Like, okay, so you are protecting a country where now YouTube is allowed to limit free speech. So where's the freedom protected right now?
Right.
Like Christine was saying, like where is the freedom actually protected? So, and what if the military had to make a choice today, who would they protect? Your freedom or protect Joe Biden against you standing up for your freedom?
Exactly.
I feel like they would make the choice to protect a senile old man. And
because they would also have pride in following orders, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It's that point of just self-interest, just to hit it one more time, is like exactly what you were saying. You're gonna feel like shit regardless. Like when you're tired or whatever, you're gonna feel bad regardless. But the ability to read to your kids, you're at least giving something and you can feel good about that. And it's like, you are going through this life regardless. And so you're going to feel like the way that you're feeling right now, if it feels shitty, you're going to feel like that regardless in your life. Time is going to pass. the question is, what are you going to do with that time? Is it just going to be you feel like shit, so everybody else has to feel like shit too? No one else deserves to feel good. No one else can experience any goodness. You don't want to devote your life, your time towards creating something that's best, or that you would actually be proud of, because you would be able to say, look, I fucking did this. Even who cares? Like, I felt like shit, whatever. I did this. I created this for life, to support others. This is going to actually have a real benefit that's measured. And so if it is the case that I come back to this life, I would have known that I did this. Here's the way I've been thinking about it lately. It's kind of like, imagine you go into a VR, right? You go into this VR world, and everything in the VR world treats you the exact same way that you treat yourself and everything that you encounter. And you go into this VR world and you're like, this fucking VR world is shit. It is shitty. And then you're like, fuck this. I'm gonna be like shit too. And so then you get amnesia, you turn it off, you completely forget, you're back into the VR world, and guess what? It's left the same way that you left it. And then you're like, fuck this. Until you realize it's like, I have to make the choice to, regardless of what's going on around me. I remember this so clearly. I remember I was talking with Cam, and this was, I don't know if I'd just become a distributor or before I'd become a distributor, but Cam was posing this question of, what are you going to do with your life, essentially? And asking, don't you want to create a world that's best? And I was like, I mean, yeah, of course I do. But what if no one else does it? Cam's response was like so gold to me. It was so gold, because he's like, what does that have to do with you? Like, seriously, like, do you base what you do and who you are on what other people are going to do? That's how a lot of people act, isn't it? It's like, wait, who are you? I don't care about who your mom or your dad is, or your friends or whatever. Who are you? Do you just base everything that you value and who you are and what you'll do just based on what those around you are going to do and what they find acceptable? Because then, are you even alive? Because it's not you directing that. You're basically saying, well, I'm just kind of going with the flow of this network, which is like, you're basically saying you are the system.
And that it's a very like low vocabulary way of looking at it, because consider, like, you can just influence a bunch of fucking people to do the same.
Right. Right. Which is
cause. You be the puppet.
Because
puppet
then if that
master to
becomes
help-
your purpose to
Mhm.
do that, then you have to influence other people.
Right.
And the biggest thing that I think people face is this idea that your happiness and your goals and your dreams and all this stuff should be unique. But it's like, you spend a lot of time around like the law of attraction people, or what, it's not really law of attraction, like people who follow like Tony Robbins type stuff. What would that be considered? It's not really law of attraction, right?
It'd just be like success
Success-minded.
Okay, so
Personal
like that
development.
type of person, right? Like, what are the kind of things those people feel like they want? What are their goals?
Yeah, it's in a very general sense of like, make the world be a better place, but there's no specifics to it. And then just like feel really good and help other people feel good and stop suffering on the planet. But again, at a very high level, it's like, once you get into the detail of it, and how to actually make that happen, most people tune out.
It's the essence of stopping suffering. It's like a LaCroix, but like with the flavor of
You know what it is? It's just the atheistic version of praying to God to get into heaven. It's like you're thinking, if I talk about I'm gonna make the world a better place and all this stuff, like I'm gonna get to go to heaven. And it's like, but not by actually doing anything. It's like if I just praise Jesus' name, and I'm like, what if you actually have to be Jesus, be exactly like him? And they're like, well, you can't be like him.
No, Jesus did that for me.
I'm just gonna go do exactly like when you look at what a person who, let's say you have some Christian QAnon person, right? And they fucking hate George Soros, right? But in their day, what do they get up and do that's fundamentally different? Don't they participate in the exact same system?
Mhm.
They're doing anything fundamentally different. So it's like you're exactly the same. What are you doing differently? You're not like they would be upset because George Soros wants everyone to be poor, right? Apparently, or Klaus Schwab or somebody. But it's like, but if I tell you let's give everybody money, you're like, well, no, you can't do that because communism and all this stuff. And it's like, so you're on the same page.
No, it just shows how people have such fucked processing ability. It's so fun that we get to do.
Or they say like it's
We get to
not in my
help them.
hands, it's in God's hands or something like that. And it's like, so why are you complaining about George Soros or Klaus Schwab or anything?
Yeah.
And so talking about the problems, it's just like people who say like, well, you shouldn't talk about the negative. You should only focus on the positive. What I'm saying is you're brainwashed. You're retarded. That's like being a mathematician and being like, I'm never going to look at any problems. What are you going to do?
Well,
like, you're not doing anything
math-
then. You're just hoping something happens.
In math, two negatives make a positive, you know.
There you go. I'm gonna not look at the negative. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you're being negative.
Yeah.
In the very statement of you're going to avoid the negative, you're going to not look at it. You're being that's a negative activity. You're not doing something. The actual positive would be embracing all of it. And that's why we're saying what we do, Destiny, TechnoTutor, Self-Perfected, is the actual most. There's even an audio Bernard did called the most positive message on earth, I think.
Yeah.
Destiny, the most positive message on earth.
Wow.
And he says in there, it is the most positive. And I've always said this too. It's like, show me anything beyond it. You can't. Anything anybody has as some idea, purpose, belief, desire, goal, dream, whatever, is always less than. It's always something less. You can never surpass this point because it embraces everything. And until this point is done, there's nothing else to talk about.
It's like you can't be more than life, right?
Right.
It's like there is no more than life, and so people like strive. I'm going to use that in quotes, but they try to be more than. It's like you're actually in doing that. You're actually creating yourself to be less than because you're unequal to life, and there is no.
And it's funny because the more than that they're actually looking for would actually be experienced within just being equal.
Yeah,
and so you can't. If everybody equally comes from the same source, everyone should equally have the same purpose. So why we have this individualized purpose? That's just more of the fracturing and splintering of everybody into the mind.
Century of the Self explains that really well too, like why that got sped up. And just for people who aren't comprehending this, like imagine as you got a human body and all the organs and all the cells and all the parts of it are all like, yeah, well, I'm just going to like do my own thing. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to kind of hope it all works together. What we're saying here is that as humanity, it's like that. We're like a body. And until we all get firing in unison, all working towards the best purpose for everything, right? Best for all, we're not even going to experience life fully. Right. And that's what we're saying is get every little last piece directed towards what's best. And then we can unlock some new level that we can't even imagine right now.
Somebody would say that that's communism or slavery or something. And it's like, but then your body is communism.
and slavery.
So just quit reacting to the words, and like communism is a very specific thing. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not just generally everybody has what they need and everyone's happy. That's not communism. Yeah. People throw it at that. Oh, that's utopia. No, utopia is a very specific thing. We're not talking about those things. We're very explicit about what we're talking about. So if anyone puts a label at it, it's like, you're just trying to label it something because that your mind doesn't have the vocabulary of what we're talking about. Even going back to the whole Kanye and all this other stuff that you're seeing, you've seen all these conversations now pop up that are kind of trying to break the mold of what's the current allowed accepted things to think about. And they're always going back to, like, I watched that interview he did with I mean, you've really been out of the loop, Mitch. Do you even know about Kanye?
Do you know who Kanye is?
Oh, dude, I love that guy. I love everything he stands for.
Okay, cool. So you get it. There's a lot of things I love about Kanye. But
I saw his Alex Jones thing. Yeah, those.
Well, he went and he did another thing with Gavin McInnes, as Tim Pool says. But they just kept going on about, like, and Nick Fuentes with them, they kept going on about how, like, America should be a Christian nation and it should be guided by the Christian principles. And, like, okay, what is that? But they just kept going back to Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. These, like, catchphrases, right? And it's like, but even within Christianity, you've got Catholics, you've got Protestants, you've got Lutherans. So let's say we reestablish society based on Christianity. Okay. Is there not going to be a bunch of fucking infighting about which is the correct Christianity, which is the correct books? Like, I saw this ad on Facebook. I mean, I know, but I don't know why I get these ads. And it's like all these pieces of jewelry. And it's like the Bible is engraved on every single piece of this jewelry, the entire Bible. So it's like you can buy a necklace that has the entire Bible engraved on it somehow.
What the fuck?
And
what the fuck?
It's a giant fucking necklace.
now it's like you have to use some kind of microscope or something.
Who's got the fucking time for this shit?
But I was just thinking about it, like, oh, all the books of the Bible?
Yeah,
like the Gnostic,
except the Gospel of Thomas.
Talking about, like, yeah, exactly, Gospel of Thomas. What are we talking here? All of them? Gospel of what was that guy who did the betrayal thing? Judas. Isn't there like a Gospel of Judas? I mean, is it all the books, or which books?
No, just the accepted ones by the Ministry of Truth.
Right, exactly. So it's like the original fucking Orwell shit, right? So just even the idea of, and see, I think what people are starting to push up against is like, well, if we turn our backs on God and Jesus and Christianity, we basically have permission to do whatever. And that's sort of the contention about Judaism, is that there's these ideas within it that you can kind of do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody who's of your particular religion or whatever. And within Christianity, the idea is that, oh, you should love everybody equally or something, right? And it's like, but it doesn't really go far enough, because with Christianity, it still stops at there's a supreme being. It doesn't allow within it. It does not allow human individual beings to be perfect.
Right.
I'm not going to teach my kid. It's actually the original racism.
That's
because
good.
Like a Christian conservative, I'll tell you right now, that mindset, they would say like, oh, you shouldn't teach black kids like everyone's racist and everyone's out to get them and they're going to be held back because of the color of their skin. But that's what you're teaching a child when you teach him about Jesus. You're saying
So
you can never be
Wow.
perfect like Jesus. He will always be superior to you. And you can all
You're
you can do is
racist
hope
towards
and
the human
pray.
race.
And in that interview, Nick Fuentes said, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was he specifically said, one of them said, I'm pretty sure it was that interview, that the purpose of society, government, the world, whatever, is to prepare people for heaven.
Wow.
Right. And I'm like, man, that sounds like, it's like, if you go back to like the rhetoric around Trump, and people were calling him Hitler and everything. And then a lot of people started saying, like, if you try to portray Trump as Hitler, you're going and suppress people and don't let them talk about certain things. What you're going to do is in the underground, create someone who's even worse, who's going to come up and have a lot of support because you've suppressed the discussion. And I'm like, that's literally what you're seeing with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes. They're literally now like, no, dude, let's make America a Christian nation where it's about Christian values. And like, I'm like, you're literally creating more of what the Nazis were than you were before by calling this other thing that, and it's like, I'm disagreeing with the content, not the form.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I agree. I think everyone should think the same. Does that mean everyone should be forced to? Well, what does it mean to force a child to think something? When you teach them something in their natural learning ability phase, which is the first 7 years, are you not forcing them? If you teach them in language, you're forcing. Like, it just depends on how you define that word. Usually people think of it as you put them in a concentration camp and kill them if they're the wrong thing. It's like, that's obviously not acceptable.
Yeah.
Right. But you do have to make a decision, let's say as a parent, of what are you going to teach your child, or what are you going to allow your child to be taught? What are you going to allow them to be influenced by? And that's where it really comes down to, is how do you educate your child? What do you tell them? What do you not tell them? What do you explain to them? And as a parent, when your child starts asking you questions about the basic nature of reality, do you go, well, I don't know, or you can make up your own mind? And it's like, why can't you just tell me? Well, we should all come to our own decisions about it. Like, why?
Yeah.
Okay, what is this? Well, that's a thermos. Why are you so certain about that? Well, I mean, because it's a thermos. It's like, right, it's just part of reality. So why can't you just tell me, is there a God or not? Well, everyone has their own. It's because you don't fucking know.
Right.
And you're like kind of hedging your bets, like, at the end of the day, if my kid decides on his own, it's his fault,
Right.
And it's like, well, then just treat everything like that. How do you know math is correct? Did you fucking go back to the very beginning to Euclid's Elements and like make sure and check it all out yourself? And no, you didn't. You didn't do that with the Bible, clearly. You didn't do it with anything. You didn't do it with fucking COVID. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it was us talking about. Well, if I repeat it, then I'll just shut this one down.
Yeah, exactly. I think I know what it is that we were talking about. But I'll tell you later. But but
I'm so afraid.
Say the exact opposite, then maybe we'll get our strike removed.
okay. I'll say the exact
lie
opposite.
that people.
So it's the lie. You know how people right now are really believing that if you were to take some experimental, drug of some sort,
That's what they claim. They falsely claim it as that.
Non-experimental.
An actual valid vaccine that's totally valid and tested. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So if you were to take some non-experimental drug, then you might potentially not experience a heart attack, and it might not be, or will be reported in the news that is the case, that it is not. It is a pandemic of the but the ultra vax not aided.
I feel like you're gonna have to have a PhD in analytical philosophy to be able to parse that one out.
And definitely do not
Bertrand
go
Russell.
Bertrand Russell's gonna be like, this man does not know English.
He's gonna be like, fuck happiness, I'm done.
And definitely don't go on BitChute and watch a documentary that has the words in it. COVID is completely real, and died, and
living
is really great. And suddenly, okay, lived not quickly, not suddenly. Lived not suddenly.
Expectedly. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, died suddenly. I'll just say it. Maybe the algorithm doesn't see
people
it.
got upset about it because apparently some of the images they used, it was people like dying from some other thing. Mm-hmm. So they're like,
I'm sure people were like, oh, how do you know that guy had this thing? But damn, that was. Do not watch that with kids. Holy shit!
Do not watch.
Don't actually
either. Do not watch that.
Don't watch
Hebrews to Negroes.
Oh yeah.
His Negroes.
Don't watch Planet Lockdown with Catherine Austin Fitz either. That one. Anything with Catherine Austin.
Don't watch Century of Self. Don't listen to Any Destiny.
Yeah.
Certainly don't do that.
Don't listen to this podcast either.
Yeah. There we go. I think we covered all bases.
Yeah. Don't listen.
Do you think an AI watched the podcast or an actual person at YouTube?
No,
do you know why AI always ends up being racist?
Because we're racist as a people.
Because they're like, oh, the AI always says like racist stuff, and it's always presenting information that ends up they like claim is racist. It's like it's just because it's really good at processing data unbiased.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, think about it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like why is it they're like, oh, well, AI is always racist, and it's like, but literally it's just processing data, all the information out there, and it's like putting it together, and they're like, what are the conclusions here?
Yeah,
we live in a racist world.
I was considering this point the other day, and it's what is the opposite of self-forgiveness? Because we're always talking about self-forgiveness, right? And
forgiveness.
Explain that one. Ooh.
What were you thinking?
No, because I had something different. Like, you want me to
Blame?
share mine
Were you
first?
thinking blame?
No, I'll share mine
Yeah,
first.
okay.
I'll share mine first, and then I want to hear yours. Right. So the
Mitch, don't you have to
opposite.
go?
I have to go in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Go ahead.
Just about triggered enough to leave, but I want to hear this.
Okay. So the opposite of self-forgiveness would be justifying why you're in the position that you're in and holding on to it. So anything like shame, regret. Hey, Jess. Hey, Aristotle. um,
Did you guys you had a child? I didn't know you had a 1-year-old also.
He's actually 2.
He's literally larger than Caius.
he's massive.
For a second, I thought it was a Christmas card because I was watching on Facebook Live. It's like, that's a cute baby.
It's difficult to hold him without this carrier for any longer than like 3 minutes.
I don't have
Arms
to
are
go.
like-
I don't have to go to the gym anymore. I just carry him for 5 minutes.
It's like my arms are just like my veins out of my arms are just bursting. I'm like, is this normal? I literally sent it to Christine. I was like, is this okay? Is this normal? Yeah, it's fun.
She's just constantly working out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
You're gonna be ripped next time I see you.
I was actually, I was gonna send you guys some of those TT Ranch shirts because you were asking about it, right? And I was like, well, I was actually gonna give you guys a little bit bigger because they're like on the smaller side. And I was like, I think I'll just send y'all one of those youth larges for Aristotle. He could probably fit it.
He's probably ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
I was just
Okay.
gonna say forgiving other people is the opposite.
Uh,
But, I like
uh,
what you said. It made sense.
no, it's because it's literally like the opposite of self-forgiveness is you're holding on to where you're currently at. You're justifying it in some way, whether it be like, oh, it's because of this thing that happened in the past, or I'm just not that kind of person, or it's these things that are keeping me from doing that. It's all justification of why you're not going to change. That's the opposite of self-forgiveness, because the whole purpose of self-forgiveness is taking the responsibility
Yeah.
to change.
Dude, I went to the bookstore the other day and they have like the history section.
Mhm.
And we went in there and it was like they had like the walls of books and everything, and like with these markers for different topics, right? And like, British history, this, that, whatever. And there was one called Jewish people. And I like took a video of it, just kind of like scanning through. It was like 2 rows and a half. And it was like Holocaust, 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 like every book. I mean, like, not, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was like 2/3 of them was about the Holocaust, right? And it's like
See image.
yeah, by Mitch. It's exactly that point of self-forgiveness. It's like, no, if I forgive myself for accepting and allowing the trauma, then I have to actually take some responsibility. But the people who will not forgive themselves end up being the biggest abusers.
Yeah.
Because they won't allow things to change. Just like you're saying, if you do not forgive yourself, you cannot allow anything to ever change. So
Yeah.
it just keeps perpetuating the same point. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm justified because I'm the victim.
Right. Right.
I mean, how is the world ever going to get to any point of changing anything if we can't challenge how we've done things up to this point?
Exactly. That's exactly the point. It's like, okay, you're holding on to all the bullshit that you've accepted. And what's that going to create for the next generation? Because you're still holding on to it. What's that going to create for them? Like, we already know the system influences the children coming into this world. That's obvious. Everybody knows that. That's so obvious, right? But it's like you're actually justifying holding on to that system within yourself, while at the same time complaining about it or saying that, no, looking at the negatives or whatever, like, I just want to be focused on the positive, but yet you're not actually changing. Like, okay, for instance, myself, when I was studying, quote unquote, the law of attraction, when I was really into the law of attraction, I wasn't really studying it. I was just like, I watched The Secret a few times. I listened to Your Wish is Your Command. I got some law of attraction books, like Asking It Is Given. and Money and the Law of Attraction. I got those books, The Science of Getting Rich.
I have those books.
Right. And and I was like, okay, I'm going to focus, quote unquote, on just the things that I want. And the idea that I had in my mind was, yes, I want things to be better for everybody, but that requires that everyone else, you've all got to take responsibility for your shit. I'm already positive. You just got to be positive too. And then life will be better for you too. And that's your fault for not being positive. Not recognizing that, I'm working backwards essentially from how I got there, because I think it makes it really clear for why the trap is laid the way that it is within the law of attraction, or within the idea of positive thinking. Because the way I saw it was, I had the life that I had so that I could appreciate the things that I have now. And I was lucky enough to come across the law of attraction. And so it's my job just to spread the law of attraction to people and just tell everybody about the law of attraction and positive thinking, so that everyone else will then take it upon themselves to positively think about what they want. And then if they're not positively thinking about it, then that's their responsibility. And so in my mind, it was like, and it's okay for them to have terrible things happen to them, because then they'll get to appreciate even more when they do finally become positive, right? And it's like really ignoring and somehow at the same time being jealous of those who had things and who were born into it, especially being jealous of them. And at the same time, believing myself to be better or superior to them because I had to endure more. You get what I'm saying? It's like, like this idea of just like, because, this is so good. Okay. Because I'm not actually better, I get to feel superior in my mind,
Right.
which is just basically a reaction to feeling inferior.
It's the same pattern of religion.
Yeah, it is.
It's literally just a religion. It's like, I'm just going to hold on. I'm just going to think these thoughts. It's going to make me feel superior. And that's really what I want. Because think about it. You feel superior because you're allowing there to be a superior being.
Yeah.
Same thing with law of attraction. You're allowing there to be a superior law that has nothing to fucking do with you. But then within it, you feel superior to other people because they haven't figured out the truth.
Right.
And it's like, but then you have no intention whatsoever of actually taking any real action to support them to understand it. Imagine like the people.
It's the same thing that like the people who are like flat earthers are like, they feel superior because they know this piece of information that if you would just get this, it would come, the whole thing would come tumbling down, and you're like, we would all know. It's like that same logic of thinking. We're all participating in it.
The starving children who are starving and who have been abused, right, are simultaneously the most compassionate and the most evil.
Ooh.
Oh, think about it, because they're compassionate because they're giving you contrast.
Yes.
And they're evil because they are focusing on the negative the most.
Right. Yeah, I see that.
It's so funny. It's like, and then by extension, Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and these guys are the most benevolent people on earth.
They have to be, because they're focused on the most positive.
Clearly, because they have the most.
Yes.
And then what is somebody going to say then? Well, it's not about material possessions. It's just about how you feel. And it's like, right, the same thing. Don't you think they feel better?
Obviously.
Because if a person's honest, like they don't actually feel good.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Man, that it's so great. Like I was, what was that point that you were bringing up earlier? Because I see it there's something within it as well. You're saying something about I fucking forgot what you're saying, but I wanted to say something about it, but I'll say something about it later.
Let me add this part then, because I had made a couple of posts on my Facebook. One was about a book about not watching the problem with television.
Yeah,
and this guy on my thing, he wrote, "No TV, just books for me. Thanks for sharing." And I was like, "What are your top book recommendations?" He said, "These two books could change a person's life: Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill and Your Inner Conversations Creating Your World by Neville Goddard." And I was like, "That's cool." I said, "How would you say those books changed your life? In what way?" Because he said they could change a person's life, right? He said, "These books open an awareness of consciousness of the thoughts and conversations that come with it. And the conversations that come with it are present in the mind always. Becoming aware of them, where they come from, is the beginning of change. Create your own vision and world and stop living someone else's Orwellian nightmare."
So
yeah.
he admits that we are living in an Orwellian nightmare.
But if you just compartmentalize your reality in your mind,
If
no
you
longer
become aware of the
exists.
conversations that happen in your mind, then you can create your own vision and world. You can create your own world.
Oh, is that so? Where is it? Is it Mars? Is that? I feel like Elon Musk is really good at that then, because he's actually sending shit out to Mars apparently, right?
But how do you create your own world?
I'm sure it's just like in that movie Prometheus, the precursor to Alien.
But aren't there other people in it?
But you become the owner of it, I think.
You
It's your world.
you
right?
see, like how the person's not even aware of the cognitive dissonance.
It's like it's
How do you
that's
create
the
your
point.
own world? Okay, go ahead.
I got the point. All right. What you were saying as far as this world is to prepare us for heaven, right? The way I see that right now is this is what heaven is like. There is a, okay, so if this is, as far as the heaven that is purported within Christianity, within any major religion, there are races. There are gods, there are angels, there are you're at the fucking bottom right next to demons, right? Like it's like there are races. We're preparing for heaven. Hey, great job. You're doing a really fucking great job right now because you are living within separation. There are hierarchies to this, and these people have it better off than you, and that's the way it is. That's what we're experiencing right now as far as the
If there were a heaven, it would be just like that.
Right. And so thanks for the clarification on that. The reality is like this world is preparing for quote unquote heaven, but it's not heaven as in we're gonna go somewhere beyond the sky or past the firmament or whatever.
I think it's just past the Van Kuiper belt, or is it just the Kuiper belt? Yeah, Kuiper.
I don't
Or is the Van Allen? It's one of those two. I think it's
okay.
That's why the Van Allen belt's there, so you can't get to heaven.
That's it.
Not in like a modern spacecraft.
Once we take off that belt off of from around Earth.
No, that's Orion's belt.
Okay. Well, once we take off that belt, somebody's getting a whoop.
Orion's belt is the belt God uses to whip your ass.
That's it.
Whenever you do something naughty in heaven. And also in heaven,
naughty.
If heaven is like, it's so fucking amazing. Like, can you be like naughty as well? Can you like do like kinky stuff?
Can you do kinky?
Or is it like super
know.
Puritan? Like how Puritan is it? Can you indulge? Can you like eat until your heart's content? Can you like just fucking, can you like do like a full on buffet? Or is that like, that's too much like, indulgence? Like, what do you do in heaven? What is it? Is it just a state of being? Is it just like, what is it? Does it even have any fucking clue? And then there's probably how many books are there of differing opinions about what it is? And people want to talk about, oh, we gotta institute Christianity because it's gonna prepare us for heaven. They can't fucking know what it is. Like if no one had told you about it, you never would have figured it out.
Right. It's funny because okay, I asked this question yesterday to my clubhouse, Like, what is happiness? And everyone had different answers, differing answers. Happiness to me is blah, 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 blah. Right? It's like, okay, if you were to ask 1,000, 1,000,000 different people, what is heaven? You would not get a consensus on what is heaven. It's just this nebulous idea of things that feel good. It's this idea of like, it'll just be perfect. Okay, cool. What is that? What's that mean? What's that look like? Right. And what we talk about within this group, and Mitch had brought this up earlier, like these people that, that he's in contact with often are people who have this like nebulous idea of ending suffering on earth. But that's so clear. It's something that can be really clearly defined. It's like,
yeah, it's just lip service. It's not real.
Right. Obvious.
It's like I'm just saying it because then I can pursue my own happiness, because I'm justifying it by saying it's helping everybody. And it's like, but can you tangibly show how it actually does that? And that is your happiness. It's like, well, no, I want to be the top sales coach in this certain field and like make $1 million, but it's because I want to help the world and I want to help people get better, and you're like, no, like what? That's just some fucking bullshit. You don't really care about that. You're just trying to pursue some vision you have in your mind of like what you think success is or what it would look like.
That Peter Boghossian, like Boghossian, how do you say his name? I don't know. Peter Berger.
Boghossian.
Yeah. Bugatti. Peter Bugatti. When
Little Yachty.
Yeah. When he was doing that commentary on Ibram,
he has a whole podcast. He has a whole podcast about what is it? Do you remember what it's called? It's like all things
reconsidered.
Reconsidered, is that what it is? Where he basically just like is breaking down how like NPR became totally woke over the last few years or whatever. So that's like the idea of his podcast.
And then the t-shirts are like, we don't donate to NPR or something like that.
Yeah, like I canceled NPR or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I gave up donating to NPR. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, he was what they had brought up this point of they had all these professors in some university, I guess in Portland, spending 500 hours trying to make their campus or solve racism on their campus. And he said, someone put out a tweet, and in one tweet, it was just like, here's what you do. Identify where there is racism, change it, look at the outcome. Did it solve the outcome? That's it. It's like, okay, the same thing. Okay, look at the system. Look at where we're at. It's the same thing as mathematics, right? Apply a solution. And okay, look at the results of that solution. Did that actually solve it? Yes, no. Okay, back to the drawing board. Let's try something different. Let's do something different. But we know that this is a problem. Identify the problem, apply the solution, look at the result. Yes, no, okay, continue. It's like within this system, it's really clear. What's worse than just quote unquote racism or classism or any of that? It's like people are starving, they're dying, they don't have enough drinking water, they've got diseases that we can completely prevent. All of that stuff, it's like step one. That's step one. Get rid of all that stuff. And now we're heading towards a world that is quote unquote without suffering, right? Heading towards the heaven on earth. But it's like, if you are justifying what you're doing by just giving it lip service, you don't actually care. And I know that's obvious, but it's like, that is, that's what we're up against in general, is we're faced with a world where people will give it lip service and believe that means that they care. To go back to Mitch's analogy of driving and then there's a wall alongside you, and it's like, you know, the people who are giving it lip service or focused on the positive, quote unquote, and not looking at or being aware of what's actually happening, are really just focused on the wall and trying not to hit the wall.
Yeah.
And in essence, what that means is they're not actually even driving. They're just crawling along the wall, essentially. It's like you can't actually drive that way. Meaning you can't be life. You can't live life if that's your focus. You're not even in the game. It's not because life is an illusion. That's another silly thing like that. That's just how the mind will just fuck you. It's like, okay. You're right.
You know that whole like row your boat, and it's like life is but a dream.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? Because it's like, so life is a dream. So then you're going to wake up somewhere else and that's going to be reality. When this is the most obviously physically tangibly real thing you can experience.
Yeah.
And people think that something where you're like floating around as energy is real, or I don't know what the fuck people think. Like, you're going to go somewhere more physically real than this.
Okay. And that's a great, okay. What are you going to do? Because if you were to put on some VR goggles, you were to lay down and like you get to experience within your VR world some amazing things. It's so beautiful. It's like, but you're literally just sitting there lying down and you're not doing anything. You're not actually moving.
And ironically, when is virtual reality more real, or when does people really feel like it's to the full extent, is when you're there and you can physically touch things, taste things, smell things, see it, like interact just like you're in physical reality.
Exactly.
But then it's like, okay, so at what level do you start allowing the rules to be broken? Well, I can fly around. Okay, but that's not real. So that's going to make it less real. So what do you actually want? Do you want it to be real, or do you want it to not be real? Which is it?
Yeah.
That's a problem. Here, I want to break this down and then we can wrap it up. The point is this, like, all the people, you know, I know we talk a lot of shit on like law of attraction, that kind of stuff, success, all that. It's just because what we realize is that the desire to be successful is coming from this point of lack, meaning you were born into a world that wasn't designed for everyone to have everything that they need and then be able to create what they want beyond that. Its starting point is lack. Its starting point is survival and fighting and fear and competition. And if there were a world where everyone has what they need at a basic level, and you just remove any of the fear or stress or survival, or fear or stress of having to survive, meaning if I don't focus on that, I will die, because that creates stress, it creates fear, anxiety, all these points. That's still there under the surface. And no matter what we put on top of that, it's still there. So then everything that is created on top of that, like, because you look around, you're like, oh, there's amazing technologies and abundance and food and choices and entertainment, but all of those things are being created by other people within the starting point of creating a vast empire to secure their survival.
Yes.
It's not to actually create and give, because if it were, we wouldn't have reality TV shows. We wouldn't have Instagram influencers. We wouldn't have the Kardashians. We wouldn't have Game of Thrones. Like, you wouldn't have that stuff. You would have stuff you couldn't imagine right now, because everything is like I always look at the analogy of when you listen to like top 40 or whatever, like music, you know, and like it's always usually like kind of like love songs or something about sex or something in some way, and it's super immature.
Yeah.
You know, you listen to like an Ed Sheeran song and it's like, I'm in love with your body. Yeah, or is that what he says? Like, or it's like kind of like this sentiment of like everything is for you, and it doesn't even,
like,
it's
I
not even
die for you or something.
And it's just so immature. It's like, wow, you're still in like middle school,
right?
In terms of how you're processing emotions and so forth. And So everything is still always going to be on the surface. Politics, fashion, entertainment, all these things are still going to be so like surface level, no substance. And it's just going to be changing the colors and the shape and the style of it to like keep it moving. So you know, just keep needing a new thing, you know. And like Katie said, she had to get a new phone because her phone wasn't working properly. So she got like the newer iPhone, and it's like it's slightly a larger or different dimensions, so she can't use her old case. So we're just talking about how you have to get a new case. You know, they could have made it the same size, but they decided not to. So it's like we have this world built up on just got to keep it moving until so we don't, you know, things don't crumble or fall. And the stability that would come into children's lives if their parents never had to worry about providing for them, like the basics. And the lie that people have within them, this programming of, well, if I had my survival, if everyone had their survival needs met, no one would work. But it's like the most creative people in this world, in terms of creating the most, they don't think about their survival individually. They don't think about their individual day-to-day survival. Right. They're doing survival in another way. But it's like this idea that if you don't manipulate people out of fear of survival, that we won't have anything. Just think about how many jobs are so extraneous. Like how many McDonald's do we need?
Right.
How many Starbucks? How many, like, do we even need McDonald's? Do we even need Starbucks? Can you just make coffee at home?
Yeah.
And could you just have really cool parks and stuff where you could just go sit and like be there? I mean, imagine if you actually didn't have to compete with other people and you could literally anytime just go talk to somebody and they didn't have all these fucked up ideas and beliefs that were just bullshit, or you know what I mean? Like that would keep you separate from another person, or you could just go and people could come over to your house for coffee and like you don't need to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example, right? There's so much that's unnecessarily created. So when you think of it's interesting. It's like if people weren't manipulated by survival, they wouldn't get jobs. It's not that people would be lazy and we wouldn't have things. It's that the corporatist system that we have wouldn't survive. You see what I mean? That's what would happen if people didn't have to get jobs. It wouldn't be that people would be lazy, because if people had a proper education, like children are the least lazy.
Yeah.
Until you start giving them fucking iPhones and shit like that, you can see what happens.
Right.
Right. But like with our kids, we don't do that kind of stuff. And like, they're always wanting to do stuff and run around and make stuff. And like, I mean, it's really cool. So the idea, and so if you could support people to remain in that state of learning and excitement and curiosity and wanting to create and play and have fun, the world would be so much different.
Yeah.
You know, and people would have a vocabulary level where people like an Elon Musk, imagine if you had 1,000 Elon Musk all working together versus one Elon Musk and a bunch of slaves. Right. So the point is, when you can let go for a moment of my individual idea of what I think I'm supposed to do to become happy, that was just implanted in me to keep things as they are. And if I really want to be happy, I should challenge everything within myself and in the system and take it out and look at it and say, what's not best about this? Let's adjust that. And that will require collective effort. Initially, it's just you working with yourself and then seeing how you can push yourself into influencing collective points. And that's where you start to see how your process evolves. So we have the actual tools to do that. No one else has it. Everyone else, whether it's a Tony Robbins or anybody else type of thing, or Kevin Trudeau or whatever, they're just scratching the surface of trying to elicit some desire for you to like try to strive for a little bit more. But it's literally like motivating slaves. Yeah. It's not to judge them. It's just, they're just a slave like everybody else, trying to survive in the system and playing their part, unwittingly keeping things as they are. This process has to be done at an individual level. You can't have a savior, whether it's Jesus or Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a savior who's going to guide you and tell you all the things. You have to become smarter. That's why you need the tools. And as you walk the process, you realize, oh, the only thing valid here to do right now is to change the system. And guess what? To do that, you have to make money. You have to have relationships, all the things that you think you need, that you do need to have, but that you think you can only get by participating in the system and just following your bliss and all this bullshit. You get all that stuff and you get it in better than you would get it otherwise, because you have to be self-honest and you have to then base your relationships on reality, not just on fighting over opinions and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my final point is like, for those people who are still pursuing that happiness and looking for that next thing of like how to get what you want, it's like, dude, we have all that. And the level of people having their own realizations of how to move themselves in their process just by using the tools is incredible. You don't need a guru. That doesn't mean you can't get feedback from other people and support. But the moment you turn other people into gurus and into the leader of you or the authority of you, you're fucked and the world remains fucked. Right?
Yeah.
So that's all I've got.
No, that's awesome. It's like,
Cool.
I was, that point of like, no one else can do it for you. It's such a huge point.
No one else can educate your kids for you. No one else can fuck your wife for you.
They can't. It's not the
Right?
same.
It's
I was gonna make a terrible joke there, but I'm not gonna make that joke. But it's kind of like if somebody else were able to do it for you, it's kind of like, you know how back in the days where they would have the psychologists, like they would say somebody is crazy, or you could accuse a family member of being crazy, put them in an insane asylum, and then once you're in an insane asylum, it was like, oh, but I'm not crazy. He's like, oh, sure, crazy guy.
That's what
right?
they all say.
That's what they all say, right? And
okay,
then
I'm crazy. Good. Finally, you're getting somewhere. Okay, let's continue the treatment. You're like,
it's a catch-22, the
Oh.
episode that got removed. Anyway, but it's like once they were in there, they wanted to change, or they wanted that person to be changed. What would they do? They'd give them electroshock therapy, right? And then with that electroshock therapy, they would do this to the point where some people forget their own names. They forget entirely who they are. It's like, okay, if you actually want to change, but you want somebody else to do it for you, like, is that even you changing? Like, okay, now you're a blank slate. Okay, who are you then this
Right.
whole time? You know, or they would give them a lobotomy, right? Which is even worse, right? Just even worse. Just stick
That's where
it.
they got safe and effective from.
That was safe and effective. Okay, it was very effective in getting the results that the institution wanted, and safe to them. But yeah, it's like, okay, do you actually want to change yourself? Because if somebody else does it for you, it's no longer you. It's not you doing it, and not that it's even possible in the first place.
And then it can't be trusted because it's not you. It's like,
right,
you're not the one doing it. You're not the one saying this is who I am and this is what I'm accepting and allowing. It's like, and also it's putting you immediately in a position of inferiority, which is the problem. If someone else is going to do it for you, it makes them superior. So that is the actual problem in our reality, is superiority, inferiority, is inequality.
right.
It's not, it's everyone thinking that something else has to do it. And it's like, that doesn't mean we can't have a system, but the system should be the reflection of who we are as equality, as valuing everything equally according to what its actual needs are, not treating it the same, but valuing it equally. Like if you were in that form, wouldn't you want what is best for you in that form?
Right.
And so just because you're not, you're like, oh, I'm superior. No, you could very easily become that. So it's about creating a system that does that, so we don't have to fucking think about it.
Yeah, like, right, like actually think about this. The body that you're in right now, do you remember choosing this body, being born to that family, like in the country that you're in, all that? No, you don't fucking lie. Like, just be honest about it. Like
I was Cleopatra in a past life, and I'm like, then why do you fucking live in a trailer park now? Like, what are you talking about?
I was a saint in a past. I was Buddha in a past life. So why are you beating your kids right now? Like, it's funny.
That's what Buddha did.
I came to learn the final lesson.
The final solution. But it's these people. Well, okay, I don't want to say these people. I just really clearly,
You people.
you people, you listening to this. No. But if you're looking at that point of, well, I'm in this position and I'm lucky or whatever. Yeah, you are fucking lucky because you could just as easily, you don't know the intricacies of what went into you being born into this body instead of being born into a body that is going to die within the next 10 days,
10 seconds.
10 seconds. You know, it's just like, that's what the reality is for 99% of the world. And so if you don't do anything towards that, it's saying a lot about who you are. And you're just basically, it's kind of like that VR thing that I was talking about. It's like you're creating the conditions of the world around you to be actual shit. And that's what you're going to experience if you were to continue at all. That's what you would experience everywhere you go, because you're influencing that environment to give you that feedback to be shit, because you are shit. So stop being shitty and come and create a world that's best for all. Join us. I think we'll leave it at that.
Bye.
Cool.
Bye.